Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to another office hours for the FastStore beta. My name is Victor, and I'm a software engineer here at VTEX. I'm currently working on the FastStore team, and I'll also be your host for today's event. So let's get started. All right. So first section for today is the announcement section. This is the section where we bring you the latest news from our team, what has been released recently, and we always try to keep you up to date with what we've been working on. Maybe even announce some cool events, or sometimes just ask for some feedback. We'll probably be doing that very shortly. So there you go. Awesome. So for today, we have two release notes, and the first one is about the FastStore for June, and Pedro is here to tell us a bit more about that. Hey.
Hi Miranda, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm fine. How about you?
I'm great. So,
Awesome.
as always, we have the announcements for the Fast Store and Base Store that show what the what VTEX engineers are up to in improving these products. So, for the Fast Store announcement, we have some new features, the new component, new hero component, which is pretty exciting. Also, new aggregate rating component and two improvements to existing components which are out of stock, which now nested components accept other props, and the slider, which has been also improved. There are also some new features for the FastStore API regarding the VTEX platform. So error handling functionality, request error handling functionality was added. Canonical PD page product page slugs were added. So there we have this pattern that you can follow to adapt the slugs and seamlessly create 301 redirects between these pages. So, uh,
Just a quick note on that. Like that's we decided to do that so that people don't have like they should not notice SEO hits when trying to migrate because our URLs look a bit different, right? Like on if you're using FastStore, you will notice that the URL that we use, like the URL pattern that we use for products, is a bit different from what we usually do on Store Framework. Um, so like if you don't do this, like if we didn't do that, you would like all of your sitemaps and the URLs that were already kind of recorded by Google, they would just simply like be they would be missing, right? Like they just cease to exist. Like they would not be valid product pages anymore, and then you would lose all the SEO that you already had. So that's why we did that. Just
okay,
to
that sounds.
clarify.
Thanks, Miranda. That sounds pretty cool. And you can check the release note, FastStore June release note, to see the exact pattern, right? The redirect pattern you can use.
Yeah.
So um, we we also have a few bug fixes and improvements and chores regarding the FastStore API, which you can see in the release note, and a new feature in the FastStore SDK, which is the full support to trade policies, which is now available. Um, I have a bunch of new documentation. We have documented lots of things. I think I have been here before to talk about this, about new documentation for the FastStore API. Also,
Oh,
some new
one thing.
guides.
Did you already show everyone the playground? I don't remember. I don't remember if we've already talked about the playground.
I think we did talk about it, but there we can see it right now real quick. So let me just.
Awesome. Yeah, that looks great. That looks great. I really enjoyed it with the code sandbox and everything.
Yes, this is awesome. This is a really cool way to try something out before really committing to, I don't know, starting a project or an idea, and you can test small improvements on the go. So we have this guide for the code sandbox playground, and you can click here, right? And it goes to the playground. We have all the store files, and you can see the preview.
Yeah, if the network allows.
Yes. So yeah, it takes a little longer since we're streaming, but that's
Yeah.
okay. See,
Oh,
it
there you go.
loaded already. And so that's it. You can make changes and try new ideas out on the go without committing to um, a new repository, new whatever. Just test things out quickly.
Yeah.
And we
You
also
don't
have
even
some.
need to clone, right? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. No. That's it. It's already there for you to play around.
Awesome.
So that's it. We have some new components overview, including the new hero, which we already talked about. Some troubleshooting guides, which are really cool, and improvements to existing docs. And we have also some internal updates, which you can see in the release note, the complete release note, with all the PRs, links to the PRs if you want to learn more about each of these announcements we discussed here. But we also have improvements and lots of cool work being done in the base store. So for the base store, we have some exciting news. A new drop-down component for the Gatsby store, Next.js store. Also, price range filtering is now available for product listing pages. So you can use the price range component in order to create price range filters. And the redirects that we have discussed previously um, are also here in the base store. You can check the same pattern that redirect slugs that we have discussed. Well,
Though both those two PRs should be useful for people that already like if you already have a store that was made with FastStore, you should definitely take a look at this. Oh, at those two PRs, right? The one for Gatsby and the Next.js, because you will probably need to do the same thing, basically the same thing, on your store, right?
great. It's a
Awesome.
great tip. Because if you have started a project previously, you will
Yeah.
not have these changes, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So, in regards to the base store theming architecture, we have a bunch of new components that now have local tokens that are related to global ones. This is the list: titles, product grid, accordion, image gallery, and so on. We have a bug fix which impacts the image gallery selector and how it works on Safari. Apparently, there was an error scrolling in Safari with this component, and it is now fixed. Great. So
Safari is always kind of tricky. Now that Internet Explorer is pretty much dead, we have to worry about Safari. So.
It's the new.
Never ends.
Okay. Um, and we have also a few enhancements. So page code error handling, enhanced external and client-side navigation are now supported by the link component. SVG logo replaced by static assets. There are some updates to documentation and chores, and there are also some updates that are specific to the Next.js store. So maybe there's something you wanted to check out in the Next.js updates. And as we have said earlier, you can check the details and you can see the links to each PR of these updates here in the release note for the base store June 2022 updates. So I guess that's it.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Pedro. Those were great. It's a lot of announcements, right? Like a lot of new stuff.
Yes.
So that's awesome. I hope everyone there watching, go there, check it out, read everything. You're definitely gonna like it. Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Pedro.
Thanks, Miranda.
Awesome. See ya. All right. So that's what we had for you today in terms of announcements. And as always, if you want to keep up to date with everything that we've been working on, make sure to check out faststore.dev/releases. Pretty much like everything that we bring here to the office hours, you will notice that it was posted there before. So you may get ahead just a little bit if you keep checking it out. We all like there it is. That's the most up-to-date place that you can find like nicely formatted releases, and you can like check everything that you want. We always also leave links to the PRs that we like. If a change was made, how was it made? So it's a very valuable resource for everyone as well. So you can actually see the changes that we implemented, so that because you might need to do the same thing on your store. Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's move on to the next section, and that's the Ask the Community section. This section is all about you, all about the community, and that's our way of bringing some of your questions from VTEX Community here to the office hours, so that we can give more in-depth answers and more people get to see them. All right, and for today we only have 4 questions actually, and the first 3 are mine. Okay, so starting it off with a question from George. He's pretty much he's basically just having some issues trying to use the package at VTEX Gatsby source store. He included that into his package.json, maybe using yarn and then he started like when he tried to run his store, he's getting a few errors, right? Here he's a snippet of his Gatsby config, so he's using Gatsby. He tried to use the plugin, okay, and then it failed. But that's the thing, like if you're using Gatsby v4, you should not be using the Gatsby source store. It's actually like I asked for a follow-up on like why did he think that he needed that? But I thought it was interesting to bring here to the office hours to tell everyone that, hey, if you're using Gatsby v4, so if you're starting out right now, for example, from our Gatsby.store repo, you will notice that the repo itself does not use VTEX/Gatsby source store, right? That's because we don't need to use that anymore. This plugin is basically like adding a data source to Gatsby so that we can fetch information from VTEX APIs. But with the latest version of Gatsby, that's kind of like built into the way that we use our resolvers from the FastStore API. So there's no need to use this Gatsby source anymore, right? This package. So don't edit like it. you should be able to do whatever you need to do without using this plugin. Okay, I still need more information on like what's the use case, what motivated you to actually try to install that plugin. But well, you shouldn't need to use it. And if anyone is trying to do the same thing, it's probably not going to work. Okay, so there you go. Just wanted to make that clear. If you look at our starters, you will see that we are not using Gatsby source store. Okay, from the new starters. Okay, if before Gatsby before or before Gatsby before, so in like the base store, okay, we needed that, but not anymore. Okay, awesome. So next question. This is from Larissa, and what she was trying to do was basically um, she was messing around with like I want to add some I want to add more customization options to a certain component through the CMS. Um, but the thing is, there is no like right now there is no way that we can enable you to search to get this like the selected facet that you pass the search query. You have to pass it like this. Like if you're using a brand, we for now we only support filtering the brand by the brand name, so you do need to have the name of the brand. Like using an ID, you for now you're not able to do that. Okay, because that relation doesn't exist. Like we cannot do that right now. Okay, this is probably something I will look into in the future and to make it easier and to give you more options on like how do you want this information how you want this information to be fetched. Okay, but for right now, I mean, we know that this is like this part right here is that she's saying that okay, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to associate the brand with I'm trying to fetch the brand by the ID because it's less error prone, right? Because otherwise like the user, actually the person that's writing the code, has to match the name of the brand exactly. And then sometimes if you just if you misspell one letter, or if it's a capital N and you use like a minor N, it's not going to match, so the brand doesn't exist, and so on. Like matching the exact name is not that much of a it's not that resilient. We are aware of that. I mean, you can also do some like you can also in the front end, like on your store's code, you can kind of get around to that by like sluggify the search term or things like that. But we'll definitely look into like adding more filter options for the brand. Okay. So now, next one. This is about extending the schema. This one actually had me confused for a bit. Because what Larissa was trying to do here is that, okay, I already have a store and first of all, I think this is a fairly common use case for like everyone that is developing a store using FastStore. That is, we have our default schema from VTEX, not VTEX, sorry, from FastStore API, right? At FastStore/API. Um, we export a schema, and then you get that schema and pretty much just spin up a GraphQL server using the schema that we already give you. Okay, but the thing is, the schema that we already give you is pretty like it's pretty like it's pretty bare bones, I should say. Like um, it's only asking strictly for the things that we absolutely need, like all of the fields that we absolutely need in order to render our starters. So everything that we need to render a product page on the Gatsby.store and on the Next.js.store, for example. And we're aware that hey, our store is probably way simpler than most of our clients' store, right? So you are very likely to run into the case where okay, I need this data, but this is not in the FastStore API's schema. So there's no way like I can't just ask for it, right? You're gonna need to do a little bit of extra work there. And then with that in mind, we even wrote a piece of documentation here extending the GraphQL schema. This pretty much walks you through like, okay, how can you actually do that? Like and here in the example is we already have a type called star product, right? Star product is let me just I think it's yeah, this should help. Star product is a type inside of our default schema, right? Our default GraphQL schema. And here in the example, we're pretty much saying, okay, what if I want to add one more field to the star product? For example, I don't know, seller name. Okay, I think seller name is already included, and it's not like in the root level, but I mean, just an example. Say you want to fetch the seller name, and we don't have it already. Okay, you can easily get our base schema and add the seller name field to the star product type. Okay, and then like if you add that to the schema, your GraphQL server will know how to actually fetch the data for that field that was missing. Okay, awesome. And here we have this documentation on, okay, how can you do that? Here's the example. You just define a new resolver for the field that you just created. You define the type for that field, and then you take the types that already come from FastStore API, so our default types, along with the resolvers that we already give you. You take that, you take our default schema, this get schema that comes from FastStore API. You get that default schema, you get your own schema, just like the extending part. Here, for example, we are extending the type, a type that already exists, which is star product. If you're adding a new type, you just remove the extend word, and then you can write a whole new GraphQL schema here if you want. You will just have to write the resolvers for that after, right? But anyway, you have this schema here. You take your schema, our schema, and then you merge it together and pass it on to whatever GraphQL server you're using, right? On Gatsby.store and Next.js.store, we're using a GraphQL server called Envelope. Okay. Here in the example, we're using Apollo server. And that's one of the great things about FastStore. You can choose whatever you want. If you want to use Apollo server, there you go. You can use Apollo server. If you don't want to use Apollo server, you don't have to. And all of this works the same. Up until this point, like everything that is above here, it doesn't matter what GraphQL server you're using. Okay, so you can just follow this. All right, awesome. So given that, I was a bit puzzled by Larissa's question, because she said, okay, I already had this. I was already extending the schema and adding a new field and everything. This specifically this cross-selling, right? Cross-selling field inside of store product. Here's the snippet. So she wrote a very basic resolver that always returned test, and then the ID that we got from the arguments. Awesome. Then passing it to envelope. Awesome. But then she was having issues doing that, kind of porting what she had already done before to a brand new store, right? With a new store that was based off Gatsby.store. And then she asked us, okay, what's the difference? Like, what do we need to change? Like, do we need to do anything different? Is the whole extension thing different in any way? Because she also pointed out something that I mentioned like a few minutes ago, that she noticed that we are not using VTEX Gatsby source store anymore, right? Yeah, on the new version we don't use that plugin. Yes, on Gatsby.store and Next.js.store we don't use that plugin anymore because it's not necessary. Okay, but regarding the extension process, like how you extend your schema, just want to clear up, there is absolutely no difference. Okay, absolutely no difference. The fact that you're not using the Gatsby source store, and even if you're using XJS, which is like a whole other thing, Absolutely no difference. This tutorial should still get you through that. You can still follow the same like you can still use the same code snippet that's here, and it's still gonna work. One small issue that you might run into, um, and I already took note on that, and we will fix it shortly. Is if you're using Next.js, you can pretty much just like copy and paste this. Of course, remove the Apollo server stuff if you're not using Apollo server. You can pretty much just copy and paste up into this line, and it's gonna work. If you're using the Gatsby.store, like starting from the Gatsby.store, you might have some trouble importing this here, merge schemas from GraphQL Tools schema. Okay, this import might not work for you because of the version of GraphQL Tools / schema. Okay, so if that happens, like if you try to import this and TypeScript yells at you saying like, "Oh, this import like this doesn't exist," like GraphQL Tools / schema doesn't have merged schemas. It does, trust me. But the issue is probably the version that you're using. Okay, so if you run into that, bump the version of GraphQL Tools / schema. Okay, try to use the latest version, and that should work. Okay, that's why it works on the Next.js store and it doesn't work on the Gatsby.store. If you just try to import, like it's literally like, oh, the import for this function is gonna fail, but just because of the versioning of this package right here. Okay, for some reason Gatsby.store is using an older version. We'll take a look at that and update it as soon as possible. But like this guide is still valid. Okay, this code snippet is still valid, and the fact that we changed how the data is fetched and we don't use the source plugin anymore doesn't affect anything. Okay, the process is the same. Just making it clear, and that's it. That's it. Hope it was useful.
Now it's my turn, right, Miranda? I have a
Yes.
final question. So I'm
Awesome.
actually filling in for Mateus from the CMS team. He couldn't join us. So I'm going to try to do a small summary of this question by Jose Meneghetti. So he was having some trouble creating new pages on the admin, and it looks like he was in his first steps using the CMS. So he created a new page, and he was complaining that, okay, this is my configuration and I try to do everything correctly, and these are all my apps. So he followed the instructions in our documentation. He's like, okay, what's wrong here? Is it the webhook? Is it something else? So he was confused. And one thing that Mateus saw right off the bat, and it's super important, it's this point. Your config was right, but we have a restriction in our deploy system, which we call WebOps, that requires your repository name to match your VTEX account name. That's something that we're working on improving, but in this case, he's with Accenture BB as a VTEX account, and so his repository for the CMS to work, and that's a CMS WebOps restriction, needs to be Accenture BB.store. And he had a few others, so Accenture BB Gatsby, Next, etc. So it looks like they were testing out different technologies to see which one is best for them. But yeah, that's not going to work with the CMS. You can deploy regular FastStore, but when it comes down to connecting with the CMS, that's a problem. So
Yeah.
as that said, thanks. Looks like things were working well. Still having some troubles. So GraphQL is working locally, but it wasn't working production. So a bunch of things happening here, which I'm going to try to take offline and figure out with Shazad directly. And that's something we can do. Like I'm sending some DMs to him, see if we could figure it out together. But I think the main information here that's useful for everyone, absolutely, is this part. So if you're creating a new store, for now, make sure that your repository name has your VTEX account name.store. Otherwise, CMS isn't going to work. You can forget about it. Everything else, let's see how we fix it. I think that's what I had for today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's a bit tricky, right?
Yeah, I complained about that a lot, by the way. So I'm a big promoter of making that change. But it's just for now, it's hard coded. It's a thing about how we communicate with the GitHub repository and how everything is set up there. So it'll improve, that's for sure. But for now, make sure that your repository matches your VTEX account.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, George.
Thanks, Miranda.
Awesome. So those were the questions that we had lined up for you today. Thanks, George, for helping me with this CMS related question, and also the backstage here. And thank you all for sending questions on VTEX Community, and make sure to keep them coming. And don't forget to add the office hours tag to your question when you're creating them at VTEX Community. It makes our life much easier, and it also lets us know that you want your question to be featured here in the office hours. Okay, so there you go, just a friendly reminder. And finally, we have demo time. And unfortunately, today we don't have any demos lined up for you, but I do have an event. Not an event, an invite. I do have an invite for all of you. If you want to come here to the office hours and present something, demo something. Maybe you just created a new store using FastStore and it looks awesome. Well, you can come here. Maybe it doesn't look that great, but you can also come here and show everyone. We'd love to see it. And I know there are some go lives kind of happening right now, or they happened recently. So if you're starting live, also come here and show everyone. I'm sure everyone will be excited. We will certainly be. So there you go. There's the invite. Please come here, show everyone what you're working on, some cool stuff that you did. We're always open to having you, and we would love to have more people from the community presenting these demos. Okay, to do that, you just have to go to community.vtex.com/office-hours-beta, fill in the form, and we will get in touch with you. Okay, awesome. And with that, that's the office hours. Okay. That's what we have for you today. That's all that we had. So next week, we'll see you. Bye.